Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nowadays we are talking about qualitative data analysis. Previously we have talked about quantitative data analysis, and now we are talking about qualitative data analysis. And in previous lecture we have talked about how do we know about the difference between qualitative and quantitative data, and after knowing the difference, how do we interpret the various open-ended questions and all the different qualitative stuff that we have in our data. Either it can be observational or interview or questionnaire study, but if it is open-ended question and qualitative in nature, then there are differences that we have seen. There are philosophical differences that we have seen in a table in our previous lecture, and also there are differences that when we describe the data qualitatively or quantitatively, things become different. And one of the things that we have seen is transcribing the data. And when you have an audio recorded data, you want to transcribe it, and transcribing simply means that you take the sayings or the quotations or the words and you try to link it with your research objectives and question, and also try to link it with the theoretical framework or conceptual framework that exists in your research paper or dissertation. And this is how you proceed further with the qualitative data analysis. Transcribing interviews. We have seen that what are the things that you have to consider when you transcribe the interviews. First, you have to thought about how you intend to analyze your data, what analysis you are going to use, and make sure that your transcription will facilitate this. What kind of analysis you want to do and how this transcription will facilitate your data analysis. Secondly, have you chosen clear interviewer and respondent identifiers and use them consistently? You have to identify clearly the interviewer and respondent identifiers. How you identify respondent, how you identify interviewer. If it is an interview taken by a different person for similar people, or different interviewer for different respondents, then you have to identify them so that you can understand the transcription of your interview that is recorded by you for your research purposes. You have to choose clearly the interviewer and respondent identifiers. Identify respondent and interviewer clearly and make it consistent throughout your choice of respondent and interviewer. If it is the case that you have different interviewers for different respondents, then definitely you have to identify them separately so that you can understand the differences that exist within the data that you want to transcribe. Have you included the interviewer's questions in full in your transcription? You have to include the questions that has been asked by interviewer from respondents so that one can easily understand what was the question and how it was responded. So you have to describe the question fully. If this is not the case, then the reader is unable to understand what was asked and what was replied. Maybe reply is clear, but because question is unknown, so it might create problem for reader to understand the issue fully. So have you saved your transcribed data using a separate file for each interview? So each interview should be saved separately in a different file. That is very important because every single file should be separately saved so that you will be in a better position to identify which interview or respondent has described this or that particular phenomena or this or that particular options for you, and you want to access it again while you are rewriting your draft or while you are rewriting your transcription, and you can easily access them. If it is in one go, then it will be difficult for you to identify where you have to go to find the first or second or third or whatever number of interviewee you want to search for. So it should be separately recorded and identified so that you can easily access to that particular interview in a particular time when you need it, so that you can easily transcribe the interviews that you have taken. Does your file name maintain confidentiality? You have to maintain confidentiality because that is an ethical consideration that you have to keep in your mind as a researcher, that if you don't maintain confidentiality, that will be unethical on your part. And preserve anonymity while still allowing you to recognize important information easily. You make the interview respondents anonymous and make that particular file confidential, but try to code them or identify them in a way or organize them in a way that you are in a position to easily identify and obtain the information that you want to obtain. So you have to maintain at the same point of time confidentiality of the information provided by respondents and preserve the anonymity of that particular respondent and his views that are recorded in interview that you want to transcribe. But what you have to do is to give it a simple identifiable code or coding so that whenever you want to identify, you can identify it easily. Have you checked your transcript for accuracy and where necessary cleaned up the data? That we have already seen in our transcription of interview or data, that we have to check for number one, accuracy, number one, whether we cleaned up the data or not, because there are redundant cases of interviews or responses that we might not need for our analysis, or that might be redundant in the sense that they are repeated twice or thrice, or they are already explained somewhere else and it is coming again and again. So these redundancy things within interview should be cleaned up. Data makes sense. Once the data is clear, then you will be in a position to transcribe your interview. So you have to check for transcription accuracy and cleanliness, whether your transcript, that is respondent's interview, is accurately cleaned up or not, and whether the data is able to analyze or not. Will the package you are going to use help you to manage and analyze your data effectively? So what kind of software package you are using? Is it Atlas TI? Is it NVivo? Is it SPSS? Is it some other software that can be used for qualitative analysis? Whether that software is appropriate to do that kind of analysis or not. Whether you have identified your variables, determinants, whatever causal relationship that you want to identify clearly, and does that software particularly helps you to analyze that data or not. So if you are in a position to answer these questions, then you have to select based on these things, based on your clarification, that what kind of software you are going to use. So you have to manage the package, the software package, and analyze, that helps you analyze your data effectively. Or in other words, will it do what you need it to do? Is it possible with that particular software to answer the question that you have asked? Is it possible with that particular software to meet the research objectives of your research? If it is possible, go ahead. If it is not possible, you have to think again what other softwares you have available with you and how you can use them better to make your analysis. The other thing that you have to ask is, are your saved transcriptions compatible with the package you intended to use? So are there compatibility between the way you have saved your interviews versus the software that you want to use? Are there compatibility matching or not? Is it easy to import data from, let's say, some package where you have saved your data to the software package where you want to do the analysis of your data? So if compatibility is not there, there will be a problem for you to import data and analyze it. But if it is there, it is easy for you to import and analyze the data. So it will will not lose any features from your word processed document when you import the data. Second thing which is important is that if it is not compatible, what you do, you basically lose some of the identifiers or coding or some other important information that makes sense for you, and that is not compatible with the software that you are using. So you have to keep in your mind that whenever you saved your data, it must be compatible with the software that you are using. So compatibility is one of the important things that you have to keep in mind. Compatibility of the transcription interviews that you are saving versus compatibility of that software you want to use for your analysis. If that is matching, it's wonderful. If it is not matching, then you have to see where you are losing some of the information that makes sense for your analysis. So you have to keep these things in your mind also. Have you checked your transcript for accuracy and cleaned up the data prior to importing into your chosen package? So you not only have to clean up the data before, but also you have to think before importing to that particular software whether you have checked for accuracy or you have cleaned up the data or not. Because there might be the case that your compatibility does not match and the redundant data that you don't want to use might be compatible with that of the software, but the rest of the information that is important for you will disappear or things like that will destroy your whole analysis. So accuracy, cleaning up the data is very important before importing the file from your saved file to that compatible software package file. Have you stored a separate backup or security copy of each data file on your USB mass storage device or burned onto CD? This is a must-do thing. This is a must-do thing. Technological advances are outstanding to applaud, but the important thing that one has to keep in his mind or her mind is that technological advances and their drawbacks are simultaneously moving together. Suppose you have used one file of the data for the analysis and somehow you are unable to open it up again because your hard disk is corrupted, or you get a virus in your software, or you get a virus in your laptop. So what do you do with that? This is one of the important aspects of your data, that you have to keep backup files of your data. Number one, the original data. Number two, the cleaned data. Number three, the data which is compatible with that software you are using for your analysis. So these three things are very important. Number one, you have to save original data. Number two, save cleaned up data. Number three, saved separately each file. So these are three important aspects that you have to keep in your mind. Once you have feed your data into any of the software that you are using to feed up your data, save it as it is in original format and get its backup. Secondly, you clean the data, and after cleaning, save another file as a clean data file and get the backup of the cleaned file also. Third, every single interview or respondent's response you have to save separately, so that you'll be in a better position to identify whenever you are in need of it. Why it is a must do? What you can do basically to save is to either to put it on your USB, you can save it on your mass storage device, or you can burn a CD so that you can save it permanently. Why it is important? So is it USB, mass storage device, or burn onto a CD? Why it is important? Because technology can anytime get harmed by viruses, or you get somehow some problem in your software or in your laptop or desktop, whatever you are using, and you are potentially vulnerable to lose the data that you have with you. Making copies and backups helps you retrieve the same data with you, so that you don't lose the important material that you have collected through interviews. So this is one of the important aspects. This is must do. I'm emphasizing and focusing on it because of the reason that if we don't do backup files using USB or mass storage device like external hard drive or burn onto a CD, then we will be in a position or we remain vulnerable, so that if something happened to laptop or the hard drive or the desktop, we will be in a position to lose our important information. Same is the case with losing interviews and other data that we have saved. Qualitative analysis, types of qualitative analysis processes. There can be summarizing of meanings, there can be categorization of meanings, and there can be structuring of meanings using narratives. So there is no standard procedure for analyzing qualitative data. It is not necessarily that you'll use that particular way of analyzing qualitative data. Despite this, it is still possible to group data into three main types of processes. Either you summarize, condense meanings, either you categorize or group meanings, either you structure or order the meanings of your interviews by describing narrative, by using narrative. So summarizing involves condensing the meaning of large amount of text into fewer words. You have a full-fledged 5 to 10 lines or 10 to 20 lines interview or response to a particular question, and you want to summarize it in 1 or 2 lines so that you can make it in few words, so that make your text condensed and understandable. If this is the case, then you use it by summarizing or condensing the meaning. Categorization is helpful and it actually involves 2 activities. One is developing categories, that you have to develop categories, and subsequently attaching these categories to meaningful chunks of data. And then you use it to describe your data. Through doing this, you will begin to recognize a relationship that helps you understand the causal correlational relationship among the variables and further develop the categories you are using to facilitate this. And that will help you to further develop your categories of the analysis. So summarizing is basically contexting the text into a shorter or fewer words so that you will be in a better position to understand. Categorizing is basically developing and subsequently attaching these categories to data that help us to develop relationship and further develop categories that you're using to facilitate your analysis. Structuring of meanings using narratives. Narrative structuring ensures that the data are organized both temporally and with regard to the social or organizational context of the research participant. So we have to organize data, order data in a way that it will help us to facilitate doing analysis of our interviews. And this form of analysis focuses upon the stories told during the interviews. So what are the stories told by the interviewers, and you try to see them through narratives. You narratives की उर्दू में यही कहते हैं ना कि किस तरह से उन्होंने बयान की, किसी के अल्फाज को आप अपने अल्फाज में इस तरह से बयान करें कि वो मीनिंगफुल भी हो और वो ऑर्डर में भी हो, कि कोई स्टार्ट हो, कोई मिडल हो और कोई इसका एंड हो. So you order them and you make it meaningful also. So that's how you do narrative structuring. All of these can be used on their own or in combination to support interpretation of data. Either you use summarizing, categorization or structuring, or you can combine summarizing and categorization, summarizing or ordering, structuring and categorizing. So these can be used together, combination, or these can be used alone also. Some procedures for analyzing qualitative data may be highly structured, whereas others adopt a much lower level of structure. Some are very structured qualitative analysis data and some are less structured. You have to see what kind of data you have and which kind of analysis you are going to use. Related to this, some approaches to analyzing qualitative data may be highly formalized, such as those associated with categorization. कुछ जो approaches हैं analyzing qualitative data become formalized, such as those associated with categorization. So you formally categorize the data into various categories and then you try to transcribe or analyze that particular data. Whereas others, such as those associated with structuring meanings through narrative, rely much more on the researcher's interpretation. So this is how we see the difference between formal and researcher's interpretation. Formal is more of respondents' words that you take as it is, or you try to link them through your own rephrasing with that of theoretical or conceptual framework. But when you do it narrative structuring, what you do, you take the main central idea of what has been said by the respondent and you try to order them into how it begins, how it comes to the crux of the matter, and how it ends. So this is how you distinguish between more formal approach to data analysis, qualitative data analysis, versus more informal, I would say, in the sense that it is much of the researcher's own interpretation of what has been said by the respondent. So this is how you can distinguish between, let's say, more informal to more formal. So this is categorization versus structural narratives. So this is how you move from this to that. Or if your data allows you, what you do, the stories that you want to describe narratively, you structure them, you order them in a way that your own interpretation add into it, that become relatively informal or less formal, versus those data that can be categorized and formally analyzed, you use it together with that of categorization. So this is how you can combine two approaches together to analyze your qualitative data. Consider the use of analytic aids such as summaries, self-memos, and a researcher's diary. Together, these processes and aids allow you to interact with your qualitative data. So you can use summaries, you can use researcher's diary. Summaries are very important thing. Researcher's diary is important thing. So one of the thing that you have to keep in your mind whenever you are collecting qualitative data, especially in anthropological studies or sociological studies of some marketing phenomena or human resource management or financial things, what you have to keep is a researcher's diary where you note down every day's activity on daily basis. So these researcher diaries are also important source of some information that are relevant to your qualitative data. Secondly, you have to have summarize your main analysis when you are doing some summarizing the meaning of your research in the first step. That summaries can also use as an aid to interpret, to analyze your qualitative data. And these processes allows researcher to interact with qualitative data in order to comprehend them. You can be in a good position to comprehend your data if you have used a researcher's diary and summaries that you have made out of data. Integrate related data from transcripts and notes. You have to integrate data from what you get from interview versus what you have in your researcher's diary or notes that you have taken. Identify key themes or patterns for further exploration. That will help you to identify patterns and key themes, develop and or test theories based on these patterns. Now you will be in a better position to develop and test the theories based on the patterns that you have come up with. Draw and verify conclusions. You can draw and verify the conclusions based on the theories that you have developed while you are analyzing your qualitative data. So you have to keep summaries, you have to keep researchers' diaries and memos together with you, and link that with that of the interviews that you have conducted. Respondents' responses. What you can do, you can combine these three aids or sources together with that of your data or interviews. And if you combine these with that of your data or interview, what you will be in a better position is you can comprehend your data nicely. You will be in a better position to understand what your data is all about, how it is talking about, what you can get out of it, and how it helpful to give answer to your research question and meet your research objective. Secondly, while integrating transcripts, notes, summaries, researchers' diaries, things together with that of the interviews that you have taken, help you integrate both the data, verify some of the facts, help you understand some things in a better way, and then you will be in a position to identify key themes or patterns for further explanation. When you combine these relevant sources with that of your interview or transcripts, you will be in a better position to find themes or patterns that you can further explore using your theoretical framework, using your analytical software that you are using. Based on that, you can be in a position to develop or test theories based on these patterns. When you have identified themes and patterns, you will be in a better position to test theories that are relevant to these patterns. And then you can draw and verify conclusions. You can draw conclusions out of that analysis, and you can verify them also, linking to that of what you have in your researcher's diary, how you summarize the important facts and figures, and how you link your transcripts and notes to that of theoretical framework or conceptual framework. This is how you will be in a better position to use some of these aid material together with that of transcripts, and now you will be in a better position to see the link between the data, the link between various variables and their possible relationship, theoretical framework and their patterns and determinants, key themes that are emerging from your data, what kind of analysis you can do, what you want to conclude, and how you can verify the conclusion that you have from your data. So this is how the types of qualitative data analysis processes helps you understand your basic data. So another pattern matching procedure which Yin refers to as special type involves an attempt to build an explanation while collecting data and analyzing them rather than testing a predicted explanation as set out above. And this is explained as explanation building. Yin 2002 recognizing explanation building is an important phenomena of qualitative data analysis which helps to test theoretical proposition. What you do, you find some patterns that are matching to as a special type, and then to involve an attempt to build an explanation. You try to build an explanation based on that pattern while collecting and analyzing data, rather than testing a predicted explanation as set out above. So instead of predicted explanation, based on the patterns that you find in your data, you try to explain those patterns. So here we can see inductive versus deductive hypothesis or reasoning within qualitative data. We have seen inductive and deductive, reasoning in quantitative data. So let me read it again so that we can understand. Another pattern matching procedure. So when you have various patterns, you want to match them to get something out of it. There is another procedure for it, which is described by Yin, and which is a special type of procedure which involves an attempt to build an explanation while collecting data and analyzing the data, rather than testing a predicted explanation as set out. So this is called explanation building. Explanation building is designed to test a theoretical proposition. The explanation building procedures using the following stages. We will go to the stages, but because here we can distinguish between inductive reasoning versus deductive reasoning. So let me give you an idea. In inductive reasoning, we get data. From data we do analysis. So data can be primary, secondary, or longitudinal, and within primary it can be qualitative or quantitative. So we are talking about qualitative data. Qualitative data we do analysis, and we try to link that analysis to develop theory or new knowledge in that particular field. What we do in deductive reasoning is that we have a hypothesis, we link it with, we have data, we link it through theoretical framework, we do analysis, and we come up with results or deduce hypothesis. These are the various stages that we have learned in our previous lecture about inductive and deductive reasoning. What I want to explain with that is that this kind of analysis can also be possible and done in qualitative data analysis. This is what we have learned when we talked about explanation building. So explanation building is a process when you match patterns during data collection or during analysis of your data and try to design a test or empirical evidence to prove a theoretical proposition. And this explanation building has 3 or 4 stages. You have to devise a theoretically based proposition which you will then seek to test. So here we have proposition or hypothesis that we want to test. This is our first stage in explanation building. Second, undertake data collection through an initial case study in order to be able to compare the findings from this in relation to this theoretically based proposition. What you have to do is to collect data. This is our second step. Third is, where necessary, amend the theoretically based proposition in the light of findings from the case study. And then you have findings, and you have to amend these findings based on your data that you have got and analyzed. Undertake a further round of data collection in order to compare the findings from this in relation to revised proposition. So you get data, you do analysis, to see links with your revised proposition. So this is how from this stage to this stage to this stage you move when you want to do explanation building. You have to understand first what is the theoretical assumption, proposition or hypothesis that you have in your mind. Once you understand that proposition, then you will be in a better position to move further a stage to collect data for proving or disproving, for analyzing that proposition. Once you get data based on a case study, what you do, you basically see whether it is proved or not, whether you need some amendments in your theoretical proposition or you need to change it or revise it. Once you made amendments in your theoretical proposition, then you go collect data, analyze it, and you come up with some analytical results that helps or to deduce something from the theoretical proposition that you have framed. So this is how you can develop an explanation building. Explanation building process is deductive in its nature. You come up with a proposition, you collect data based on that, you analyze it, you deduce something from that, and then you actually amend, rewrite, revise the theoretical proposition that you have in your mind, and then you do another round of data collection to prove it or disprove it or deduce something from your hypothesis. This is how this process of explanation building developed by Yin in 2003 actually works. Where necessary, you have to further amend the revised proposition in the light of findings from the second case study. This process further continues. So if you want to further continue, what you do, you basically revise your proposition based on your second case study. Undertake further iterations of this process until a satisfactory explanation is derived. So this is how you do revise proposition, and then until satisfactory explanation is derived, you keep continue so that you will be in a better position to get understanding of what has been said, what patterns emerged, what was the proposition that you had in your mind, and how you link those patterns, key themes, matching scores with that of your theoretical proposition. This is how you have to understand the links between patterns, key themes and the theoretical proposition that you have in your mind. Use of computer-aided questionnaire development and software. So the use of CAQ-DAS offers a number of advantages. What advantages you will get when you use CAQ-DAS? I am not explaining this term because this is given in the book of Zander et al. And it is explained in chapter 13 with what it stands for. And I have already told that it is computer-aided qualitative data analysis software. So it's simply computer-aided qualitative data analysis software. So what we can talk about it is that it can be Atlas, TI, and Vivo, or there are other softwares that can help you analyze your qualitative data, and they offer number of advantages. For example, when used systematically, it can aid continuity and increase both transparency and methodological rigor. If you use them systematically, what they do with your data is that they increase continuity and increase transparency and methodological rigor, so that you can use them continuously, you can use them in a systematic way, and you can conclude something from your data. Despite differences between CAQ, DAS programs, so various softwares have similarities and differences, the basic ways in which they can facilitate your qualitative data analysis are similar. Atlas TI, NVivo and some other softwares may differ from one or the other way, but their basics are somehow similar. So that's why it's easy to use Atlas TI or NVivo for qualitative data analysis. Levens and Silver summarize these as the structure of work, the closeness to data and interactivity, and explore the data. So these are some of the things that are described. Project management and data organization, writing memos, comments, notes, etc., and output. These are some of the things that are useful or advantages of CAQ, DAS, these softwares that are used for analysis of your qualitative data. So structure of work is that its ability to store or provide connections between all data files within the research project. It helps to store and provide connections between all the data files within the research project. If you make a bigger file of research project, and within that you can have connectivity between all the data files for that particular project. Closeness to data and interactivity, almost instantaneous access to all your data once it has been introduced. Once you have introduced your data to your software, then you can access every information of your data instantaneously. Easy access is important thing, and these softwares help you to access instantaneously when you introduce your data to them. Explore the data. Text search tools enable a word, a phrase, or a collection of words to be searched and retrieved within context. So if you have text search, this software helps you to find through the keywords. A phrase, a word, or collection of words you can search, and all this software helps you to explore your data. Project management and data organization, powerful means to manage the research project as a whole and organize your data. You can be in a position through these softwares to organize your data, to manage your data, and you will be in a better position to even manage the whole research project using these data software. Data organizations allows you to focus on subsets of data. If you are in a better position to organize your data, then you will be in a better position also to use subsets of your data to explain one or the other phenomena of your data. So this organization of project and organization of data is a helpful tool, is a helpful appropriate task that these softwares do for the researcher, so that he or she will be in a better position to analyze, to understand the project, the whole data or subsets of data that are available with him for the analysis. Writing memos, comments, notes, etc. to record thoughts systematically in relation to data. You can also record your thoughts, your memos, your summaries, your researcher's diary systematically that is related to your data. For a particular file of data, if you have some summary write-up, your researcher's diary says something about it, you can save it separately with that particular file so that you can retrieve it when you want to retrieve it. That's one of the important feature of these softwares that they provide you with when you want to enter your data, when you want to save your data in these softwares, and when you want to analyze your qualitative data in those softwares. What kind of output you get? Reports allowing you to view material in hard copy or export it to other applications such as words processors and spreadsheets, as well as produce tabular reports. They help us produce as much kind of formats of reports as we want. But in simple words, it will be helpful to proceed with word processors, spreadsheets, and tabular reports can also be produced using these software. So how do you organize your data? How you manage your data and project, of course, subsets of data also, how you write your memos, notes, researches, diaries, etc., and what kind of outputs you get. Some of these softwares are almost similar to each other for these 5 or 6 aspects that we have covered. And these 5 or 6 aspects are very important, so that if you know these 5-6 aspects of your software for your qualitative data analysis, you'll be in a better position to understand how you have to save your data, what kind of identifiers you have to use, what kind of files and subsets of data you have to use, how you can identify various things within the subset of data or within the data or the whole project, and how you can find patterns, analyze them, find out something that is linked to your theoretical proposition, and then you'll be in a better position to write your report. And after writing your report, you'll be in a position to get it in word processor format, in spreadsheet, as well as in tabular format. So this is how these computer aided qualitative data analysis softwares are similar in various forms with one another through these 6 or 7 important points. Before we end, I want to summarize this qualitative data analysis, what we want to learn from this exercise, how it helps us to analyze the data, and why do we need to understand the softwares that help us understand our data in interview form, in observation form, or in transcript form, so that we will be in a better position to analyze it and to interpret it nicely. So one thing that we learn from this qualitative data analysis are that they are non-numerical data that have not been quantified. So this is unquantifiable data. That's why we need a separate way of analyzing that data. They result from the collection of non-standardized data that require classification and are analyzed through the use of conceptualization. So the information is collected using non-standardized data collection formats, either through interview or through unstructured questionnaires or through observations, things like that. And then you want to get through your theoretical proposition based on your data some results or outputs that make sense for you and for your reader. Qualitative analysis generally involves one or more of: number 1, summarizing data; number 2, categorizing data; number 3, structuring data using narratives. Why? To recognize relationship, develop and test proposition, and produce well-grounded conclusions. So these are the following steps that are used in qualitative data analysis, and based on that analysis, why do? We actually try to test propositions that we had in our research framework, and once these are produced, we try to conclude something based on theoretical ground, so that we can write our report and deduce from our proposition something strong. So it can lead to reanalyzing categories developed from qualitative data quantitatively. We can regroup, reanalyze categories, and we will be in a better position to develop new categories quantitatively. We can identify them, we can divide them into subsets of data, and then we can quantify them easily, so that we can find patterns, key themes. We can analyze them based on the propositions that we had in our mind, and we can come up something concrete based on our interviews and data that we had with us. The process of data analysis and data collection is necessarily interactive. This is very important. Why we call the process of data analysis and data collection are interactive? So collect data, you analyze it. So these two are interactive. Why we have to have interactive in qualitative data? Because if you are conducting an interview, you have to understand your questions first. You have to understand the answer given by the respondents afterwards, and then you will be in a better position after understanding your question and the response given by the respondents to see how you can find some patterns based on the interviews or transcripts that you have in your mind, to how you analyze using one or the other software to your data. So this is how this whole process become interactive. So when you want to collect data, you have to understand your questions and response. When you want to analyze the data, these understanding of responses links to what kind of data analysis, what kind of software you are going to use, and that's how this whole process of collection of data versus response or analysis to that particular data are interactive or become interactive. There are number of aids that you might use to help you through the process of qualitative analysis of data, including interim summaries, self memos, and maintaining a researcher's diary. These are the three important things that you have to understand while you are writing your qualitative data analysis, that you have to maintain a researcher's diary, which is important aspect, that and it must be maintained on daily basis. Number one, researcher's diary. Number two, summaries, or we call them interim summaries. Or third, memos or self memos. How this researcher diaries, self memos and summaries help? They basically, when you get your data organized in the software you want to use for analysis, then you try to link these summaries with your subsets of data, your researcher's diary with that particular patterns and variables that you have identified, and then you kind of verify and see what kind of patterns are emerging, whether you have something out of it or not, what kind of key themes are emerging, whether you find something out of it or not. How you link your diary with that of the data that you have collected, how you link the summaries that you have or interim summary with that of the subsets of data that you have with you. And this is how you will be in a better position to revise your theoretical proposition, to rewrite the deducing hypothesis from your theoretical proposition, and how do you link these things, data collection versus software versus data analysis, and proving or disproving a theoretical proposition. So these are the 4 stages that you have to keep in your mind so that you will be in a better position to analyze your data. So first is data collection, data analysis, theoretical proposition, conclusion, revision of theoretical proposition, and then it leads to again data collection. So this is how this circle or kind of pentagon moves, that you, based on your theoretical proposition that you have in your mind, here you go for data collection. Based on data collection, you do data analysis. You conclude from data analysis based on your theoretical proposition something. Then you try to revise and rewrite your theoretical proposition, and then you again collect data so that you'll be in a better position to explain the patterns and key themes from your data. Before I end it here, I just want to say that we have seen qualitative data analysis and we have seen quantitative data analysis. There are fundamental differences between qualitative data analysis and quantitative data analysis. You have to understand both these differences by reading the chapter 12 and 13 of the book, so that you'll be in a better position to understand what kind of analysis or possible analysis we can do when we have quantitative data, what kind of analysis we can do when we have qualitative data, and why do we have to use this or that particular method of data collection and analysis as well as software when we have qualitative data in our hand, and why do we have to get this kind of data methodology and software when we have to have quantitative data in our hand. So by understanding these differences, then as a researcher you'll be in a better position to move further. Once you understand these differences, you know your data, and then you'll be in a better position that within qualitative data what kind of data set you have, or what kind of data you need to answer your research question and objective that you have for your research. And once you understand that, now you will be in a better position to complete this circle. You have to have a theoretical framework or proposition in your mind. Based on that, you get a case study, you collect data, you do data analysis. Based on that analysis, you deduce something related to theoretical proposition, and then after concluding, you revise or rewrite or amend your theoretical proposition. And based on that amended theoretical position, what you do again data collection, and you do this process until you get something verifiable, something proved, something that makes sense for those not only as a researcher but for those who do read your research as readers. So this is how you will be in a better position to understand the whole process of qualitative data collection, the theoretical proposition and link of that with that of the data that you are collecting, the analysis part versus the software that you are using for that particular analysis of the data, how you conclude, deduce something out of your data, and how do you link it with that of the grounded realities or the facts that you have in your theoretical framework. So this is how it is interlinked with each other. This is how it is linked together so that we can understand each and every step. That is how it becomes systematic, scientific and rigorous, and make it a research methodology process so that we can conclude something out of it, and after that conclusion we can add to the knowledge of the body of that particular subject area. So this is how our research in qualitative data analysis help us understand the real life phenomena in depth, analyze them, conclude something out of it, and produce it in reports or research writing. And we have also seen some advantages of computer-aided qualitative data analysis software. So they are similar, they are dissimilar also. They are similar in organizing and managing data. They are similar in producing outputs. They are similar in using your memos, research diaries and notes and all. And this is how they help us understand our own data, our own project, and the subsets of data that we have with us. And by understanding that, we'll be in a better position to use that software nicely, coherently, invariably, so that we can get the output that we want to get. I stop here. I thank you very much, and I hope you have get something with these lectures for analysis of qualitative and quantitative data. Before I end, these are somehow the very close lectures that we are finishing this course. But what I want to say is that these are some of the last stages of our process of research methodology. What you can learn from here is definitely help you write your research paper, dissertation or report for that particular organization you are working for. We have to understand step by step each and everything, the scientific nature of that every step, how it is linked with each other, why it is important, and what kind of help we can get while we read and learn this step in particular for our research. Some of you might use qualitative data for your analysis, some of you might use quantitative. I've done both because I don't know how many of you are going to use qualitative and how many of you are going to use quantitative or qualitative. So this is how each and every person who is going to take that course will be in a position to understand the whole process. Once you understand the process, you will be in a better position to replicate in your dissertation. Before I stop here, I just want to say that now we are left with few more topics. That is, once you are done with your data collection, once you are done with your analysis of data, the further step that you have to take is to how you organize your write-up. And once you write your things and you want to present, how to present it nicely. So these are further two steps that I want you to clarify, to learn something so that you'll be in a better position not only to collect data and analyze it and write it, but also you'll be in a good position to present your data. And after that, in last 2 or 3 lectures, we'll try to see the whole course in a summary format. We'll try to analyze it critically and we'll try to see what do we have learned from there and how it helps us to understand our own research methodology, our own research process of research while we are writing our dissertation or a research paper or a report for an organization we are working for. I thank you very much for your attention and Khuda Hafiz.